You were a co-chair for Mitt Romney's campaign. You know that we know that Governor Romney is now thinking about doing a third run. If he decided to throw his hat in the ring, would you be a supporter of his?
I'm not decided yet, but I'm not happy, frankly, with the way that he's chosen to re-enter presidential politics, and I think his friends need to be honest with him about that. He's a great man. He would be a great president, but there's not a lot of good precedent for somebody losing the election and coming back 4 years later and becoming the nominee. Thomas Dewey is the best example in our party. It didn't work out too well. And unfortunately, I think that Governor Romney had two increasingly good years after losing the presidency, and now he's had one pretty bad week.
Vin, have you talked to Governor Romney since this started a week ago?
I have not. I've talked to some people around him, and the people around him are very loyal, as they should be, because he's a good man. But and they want this to happen. But I can't believe that most of them gave him the advice to handle this reemergence in presidential politics in the way that it was handled, because it hasn't gone well for him.
Well, Vin, you think the process here, he's not handled this, his re-entry has not been great, but do you not see any kind of a rationale for a third run for him? Is that the real problem for you?
No, I think that there is a rationale, but I don't think he's put it forward. I think that the rationale that you hear from a lot of Republicans, which is he was proven right about things, is a bad rationale. The next election is not going to be against Barack Obama, and it's a bad platform to say, vote for me because you were wrong 4 years ago. I think that the country is ready to turn a page on Barack Obama. I think that they're very open to a Republican candidacy. But the candidate that's going to win is going to be one that can best lay out a positive platform and a positive vision for our party and the country going forward. It's not that there's nothing critical in this, and I'm not naive about politics, but if there's not a positive vision attached to the Republican Party this time, we're not going to win.
Then it is said by some that part of what drove Governor Romney to do this was he saw Jeb Bush encroaching on a lot of his bundlers and felt if he wanted to be serious about running, he needed to act now. What do you know about the strength, lots speculated, but what do you know about the strength of how Jeb Bush's fundraising operation has gone in its early days?
Yeah, Governor Bush has moved very systematically and very aggressively on the policy front, the political front, and the financial front. And I think he's putting together a pretty good financial base. I don't know how much money he's going to show, but I think he'll make the goals that he talked about. Governor Romney has a very dedicated donor base that he has paid attention to over the last couple of years. And I think there's enough donors to go around. Again, that rationale is not the rationale for mounting another candidacy for the presidency.
So if Governor Romney were to call you and ask you for your advice, if he's coming down to making this decision, your advice would be to stay out of the race?
I think that, I guess at this point, what I'd say is what I'd heard about Governor Romney's intentions up to the last week or so made a lot of sense to me, that he was emerging as not the elder, but the senior statesman of the Republican Party, and he should wait and see how the field developed. And if indeed nobody emerged that had a chance of winning the White House, let the party come to him. I think that was a plausible way of thinking about this. Instead, to appear to get into this to preempt the first guy to really emerge as a candidate for president just doesn't make him look like the elder statesman of the Republican Party that he ought to be.
Then if I asked you today, which I'm asking you now, to name the three most likely nominees of your party for 2016, who are your top three today?
Well, first of all, having said what I did, Romney is still very strong. I think he's a plausible nominee. I think Jeb Bush is a plausible nominee. Number three gets a little hard to identify. I'll split the decision and probably say either Christie or John Kasich from Ohio, who hasn't been talked much about lately.
Vin, do you think one of the charges against Governor Romney if he runs is that he's sort of yesterday's news? Rand Paul has made that comment. Do you not think that same kind of thing could be said both from within the party and from outside the party about Jeb Bush?
Well, I think that they'll say it about Governor Bush, but it's a little different situation in my view. I mean, the rap on Governor Bush is that the Bush name has been around a long time. We've had two Presidents Bush. The last one is very controversial. But the reality is, although the name is well known, Governor Bush himself, Jeb Bush, is not well known to most of the American people. He's well known in Florida. He's well known to party insiders. But he has an opportunity to introduce himself for the first time to most Americans who have maybe heard his name but don't know much about him, and introduce himself in a very positive way.
Vin, last question real quick. Do you think the Republicans have an easy chance to beat Hillary Clinton, or it will take a really strong nominee in a great race to beat her?
I think it'll take a strong nominee and a great race, but I think it's much closer to being a 50-50 proposition than it would have been if you'd asked anybody a year ago or even 2 years ago. I think the Republican Party looks a lot stronger after that last election, and I don't think that Secretary Clinton looks nearly as indestructible as she did when she first left the Secretary of State's office. But we know that she's going to have a powerful, powerful campaign.